The hosts feel it would be a little unkind to present this podcast without just a word of friendly warning. We are about to unfold the story of Frankenstein, a man of science who sought to create a man after his own image without reckoning upon God. It is one of the strangest tales ever told. It deals with the two great mysteries of creation, life and death. I think it will thrill you. It may shock you. It might even horrify you. So if any of you feel that you do not care to subject your nerves to such a strain, now's your chance to. Well, we've warned you.
Hello and welcome once again to the Frankencast. I'm the mad scientist Anthony Bowman. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm joined as always by...
The boy named Fly-lipe that came from the previous movie, that is Eric Velasquez. My pronouns are also he, him. That's what I'm calling him. I'm calling him Fly-lipe.
That's really good.
You like that one? I appreciate that.
Oh, yeah. So we are returning with Return of the Fly.
The Fly, yeah!
And I guess before we start, I've got a little bit of a corrections corner. Somebody called us on this online, and then I actually found another. So last week we were like, I can't believe we've never watched a Vincent Price movie before, but we have. We watched Edward Scissorhands, where he had a small role.
Yeah, and there was also that one. Wasn't he a museum curator or something like that?
He was in. There was that movie Scream and Scream Again that was like a comedy. And he was like I want to say he was like a general or something. There was like a fake sort of. It was like sort of Soviet Russia, but sort of Nazi-ish country, and there were like spies and stuff. But he was like in that sort of spy world. So he's back this week. So we're now up to 4 Vincent Price movies.
Uh-oh.
That doesn't quite put him up there. Yeah, he I think Peter Cushing and Boris Karloff are going to stay at the top of the pile for good, probably, but that puts Vincent Price right up there with recurring actors for us, actually, even though we said otherwise.
Oops. Well, good for calling us on it. I appreciate that.
Yeah. But this movie, I was kind of surprised, like I said last week, I have not seen this one, and they did a pretty good job of, setting this up for a sequel and then, making it make sense. Because, the idea, okay, so now Andre's son is going to just also turn into a fly? That's dumb. But, no.
Nope.
This movie, builds, it's kind of got a slow burn to it. But, I guess the last movie did, too. It took a while before we actually saw Andre the Fly. But... yeah, I was pretty surprised at how effectively this movie managed to turn another guy into a fly in a way that didn't seem ridiculous that it would happen again.
Yeah, 100%. It did. It made a lot of sense, and it's a twist that you kind of, if you're media literate, you kind of see it coming. Like the moment they introduce the guy, you're like, he's an assistant. At this time, assistants weren't the most trustworthy in these movies, so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't mean to spoil it, but when we get there, it'll be spoiled, basically. But, yeah.
Yeah, I sort of accidentally spoiled myself because, I felt like I didn't catch his name, and I was like, I'll just pop onto IMDb real quick and see what his name is. And then I looked up and I was like, that's not what they're saying, is it? What? That doesn't make sense. And then, yeah.
2 names.
Yeah.
Your mom lets you have 2 names? Anyway, that's a very weird internet joke. Anyway. So let's get this party started. Obviously, Return of Vincent Price. Mm-hmm. So, and who is our Fly-lipe?
He's obviously a new actor, as you know. Yeah. He's playing this. I think that the movie only came out a couple years later, but it's definitely set further in the future. We have grown up Fly-lipe now.
I love that you're calling him that.
I don't know that I really recognize most of the other people. So he is Brett Halsey,
right?
The actor.
He's mostly a TV actor, but he's had a couple parts in The Godfather Part 3, aka the best one. No, and Kung Fu: The Legend Continues. I love it. That was such a stupid movie. Or not movie, TV show. It cashed in on Walker, Texas Ranger, but, in San Francisco.
Yeah. But yeah, so this one, it picks up, like we said, it's like years later, and now Helene has died, and we are at her funeral. With
Vincent giving a monologue about how this memory effectively destroyed her. Are they saying that she went by self-deletion? Because it feels that way.
Yeah, it's unclear if that's the case or if she just like kind of broke down over time just from the mental strain and just kind of like faded away. But either way, Francois is like the events of my brother's death began the process of leading to hers. It took a little
memories, while. They did not dim, but they only grew stronger as the years passed.
Yeah. So yeah, we've got Philippe now being an adult, and they're headed. Once the funeral's over, they head to the car, and they are accosted by a journalist who has been researching Andre's death, and he wants to know more about the specifics. He thinks there's something suspicious going on, which of course there was.
And a police cover-up. You gotta love that.
Yeah, and so, Francois tries to kind of like peacefully de-escalate the situation, and he's like, listen, we're not going to talk to you, no comment. But eventually Philippe is not putting up with it. He shoves the guy down.
Well, the inspector literally says, hey, first it was a murder, then it was a self-deletion. What's the story there? There's more to it, right?
Mm-hmm. And yeah, so they end up, they push the guy down, they start heading towards the car, and then an inspector, I guess the actor who was the inspector in the last movie didn't want to come back, so they just like have another inspector who's like, yeah, I worked alongside the guy.
I was there the whole time.
Yeah. So he knows all this. He knows the cover up. He knows the fly thing, and he's kind of like, just helping them to the car and everything. And then like Philippe is like, okay, you got to tell me. Like there are all these people who know things that I don't know, and I have every right to know what happened to my dad, what caused my mom's death. I'm an adult now. Like, stop holding out on me.
Right. Francois is kind of like, no. I'm not going to tell you that. You don't need to know it. It's not the best.
You saw what happened to your mom with the knowledge of, like, it'll haunt you for life. And Philippe is like, I'm going to find this out one way or the other, and it'd be better if I heard it from you. And so finally, Francois is like, okay. And, they've got a driver, and he's like, driver, take us to Delambre,
Delambre. DeLon Brothers, basically, is what it is. But also, he has basically like a phone in his vehicle. He literally doesn't have to actually talk to the driver. He talks at the driver. This is upper class all over this, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, they get to the lab, and Francois is like, okay, the lab's been locked since your dad's death. It's just as he left it, and they go in, and of course it's wrecked from the previous movie.
Well, I guess the guy who found his father in the last movie, who's, I guess, substantially older, definitely a different actor, is like, oh, promise me you won't go in there. That place is cursed.
Mm-hmm. He's the crazy Ralph of this movie. And,
right. It's a death curse.
And, Francois just kind of sends him on his way. He's like, we appreciate the concern, but we've got this. So Francois basically sums up the whole previous movie. He like, your father worked in molecular transmission, and, the fly thing, it tells him everything. And, your mother had to kill him, and that caused, sort of her downfall.
Right. So now you know everything. And we can all let this go, right? Mm-hmm. Philippe's like, oh, hell no. I want to do exactly what Dad did. Yeah, I promised you that in the movie, remember?
Yeah, he's like, remember your promise at the end of the last movie when you said you'd help me be an explorer like my dad? Mm-hmm. And he's like, yeah, but that wasn't a promise to a child. And he's like, no, it was a promise to me.
That's right.
And, but Francois is like, no, I'm not going to help. I don't have the money to put into this again. Our family business has gone downhill since the death of your father. I don't care what I said to you as a child. It's not happening. And Philippe's like, okay, then I'm gonna do it myself. I don't care. This is my dream. I'm gonna perfect my father's experiments. I'm gonna continue with his work, and I'm gonna get it right this time.
And Francois was like, all right, buddy, but just be careful.
Yeah, so Francois leaves him to it, and we see a little later Philippe talks to Alan, another worker.
Alan Hines, a British man.
Yeah, and he's like, so you want to go in with me on this, like we agreed? And he's like, yeah, of course. I want to see what your father was up to. I want to get in on this important work.
Right, you don't have to pay me at all until we get something achieved.
Yeah.
That sounds great, right? Sounds like an honest man.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
He just believes in the work so much.
Yeah, exactly. Uh-huh. Yeah. All right. Like, red flags were just popping off the moment he said that. I'm like, okay. Anyway. But yes,
Yep.
So they do go into work together. And Philippe wants to take Alan to meet a young lady by the name of Cecile. Well, he wants to take him to his house, really.
Yeah, so this is, he said, his grandfather's house that he inherited, and so we've got like a housekeeper and her daughter, who Philippe has a little bit of a relationship with. He introduces them, gives Alan a little tour of the house, takes him down to like a wine cellar that he's going to turn into his lab. So he's not going to just rebuild his father's lab in that space. He's going to make a new one of his own.
Right, but we do also see like this weird trench-coated figure watches them go into the house. Well, leave the office first, and kind of follows them or watches them go into the house.
Yeah. So we get some stuff with while he's touring, and they have tea together and stuff. There's a few moments where like we get a fly buzzing around again, and Philippe flips out. Like, he does not like that at all. And everybody else noted, like, he's just real weird about flies. Yeah. So then we kind of just like have like a time jump, and it's like weeks later, the lab is now fully built. It's no longer a wine cellar. Right. But the problem is they need more equipment, and it's getting expensive.
Philippe's running out of money.
Yeah. And Alan's like, again, like, I know you've been paying me a little bit, but like, I've got room and board here at the house with you. Just like cut my check completely. I don't need money at all.
Right. I've literally been banking what you've been paying me because I have everything here and I live here basically.
Yeah, and at that point, Francois arrives to visit and sees gets a tour of the lab, and he's like, I was really hoping you would stop this, but I'm disappointed to see that you're continuing all this work. And
right, you probably don't want your uncle here yelling at you, right, Philippe? Philippe's like, oh no, I definitely need you here right now, actually. Tell you what, you know how like my dad owned half the business and now he's dead, and that kind of would have went to my mom, but now she's dead. So I own half of your business. I want my half.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm going to sell my half, or you can buy my half from me. Like, but either way, I need money, and I don't care about the family business. It does not
Francois like, anymore. You little fucker! We've had this for 100 years in our family. It's not going down on my watch. And then Francois basically gives in. He's like, all right, tell you what. You're not selling anything to this damn corporation. I'll fund your shit.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be here to make sure you don't go where your dad did. And I'm going to tell you not to do it every day of your life until you do whatever you're going to do.
Yeah. So then we see a little later, Philippe and Alan go into town to buy this equipment. But Alan is like, can you just drop me right here, and then I'll meet you later.
Right.
And yeah, so Philippe drops him, and then as soon as Philippe drives off, Alan hails a cab, and he gets in and goes somewhere else. So he didn't want Philippe to see where he was going.
Yeah. He's going to a mortuary.
Yeah, the Greenview Mortuary, and inside he talks to the owner, whose name is Max.
Right, but Max doesn't call him Alan, he calls him Ronnie.
Yep. And so it turns out like Max is sort of like, a crime boss, basically.
Yeah.
Like, mainly it seems like he's a fence.
The mortuary. Huh?
Yeah. And so, but like Max and Ronnie don't really like each other, but it's kind of like honor among thieves kind of thing. Like we have business that we can do together, so we're we're gonna work together. So
we also
Ronnie's
kind of learn where this is set, because for a while there, I'm like, is this supposed to be in France? This is supposed to be in Montreal, so they're Quebecois. Quebecois.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, Ronnie's basically like, I have a lead on like some big bucks, like $1 million tech.
I need you to get the international electronics cartels in on this. So Sony and Panasonic, I guess.
Yeah. So he's like, I'll get all the information, all the intel, all the paperwork, and then you find the best buyer, and you can do the sale.
Right. They mentioned something about like somebody catching Ronnie, and Ronnie's like, yeah, if it's a guy from Britain, they're not going to send me back. They're just going to hang me. What? Why is that, man? Well, you see, I was double-crossed, and then I double-crossed the double-crosser and killed him. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, there you go.
Yeah, so this is like the one last job kind of thing for Ronnie. This has got to work.
Ronnie sucks.
He's got to go into hiding.
I don't think we've had a villain as bad as Ronnie. Like, we've gotten pretty or I'm sure there's been a few, but Ronnie's pretty awful. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, and, I mean, again, going, like, to, like, why we end up in the same place again. Like, Ronnie, like, in the previous movie, no one was a bad guy. There were people making bad decisions, but injecting a bad guy into this, that makes everything feel less stable. Like, anything can happen now.
Right, exactly. Oh, and it does.
Yep. So so once they come to their agreement, Ronnie steps outside, and Alan just happens, or not Alan, Philippe happens to be driving past, and just like stops and is like, "Hey, Alan, what are you doing?
Why are you on
here?"
this side of town?
And he's like, "Oh, whenever I'm in town, I try to go. I have an old friend, and I was just visiting my old friend." And Philippe's like, "Okay, well, hop in. Well, I won't have to pick you up across town. It's great."
And the mysterious man in the trench coat sees all of this go down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then we have a little later in the lab, Philippe and Alan and Francois they're just about ready to test the newly built teleportation tech. It's all put together again. And for old time's sake, they decide to start with an ashtray.
Mm-hmm. By the way, what's the signifier of insanity?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. The doing the same thing and expecting different results. But yeah, when we go through the whole thing, we do the ashtray. This time nothing flips, so they're like, "Good. All right. It's time to do a guinea pig." They do that, and the first time. It doesn't, like, the guinea pig comes out, but it's huge. Yeah. And they're like, "Oh no, we have a setting wrong." Like, yeah. So back to the drawing board, and we just have, like, them working on notes for a little bit. Sort of this whole bit kind of is sort of montagey. And do you think we're gonna have like a guinea pig man, Anthony? Yeah. So we see them again try with a rabbit. The rabbit comes out fine.
Normal.
So they're like, okay, now here's this is a new test. This isn't something that Andre tried in the previous movie. They disintegrate a guinea pig and they don't reintegrate it. They're going to leave him in the ether for a day, and then they're going to reintegrate him just to see if the atoms will all come back together as they should, even with a delay like that.
This is murder with extra steps. That's all this is.
Yeah, this does not seem like a good idea.
I guess it kind of does work eventually.
Sort of, yeah. So everybody's like, all right, well, let's call it a night then. We'll come back tomorrow. We'll reintegrate, see how it goes. Mm-hmm. But then we see that night that mysterious trench-coated figure sneaks into the basement. He's looking around the lab, and then...
But so does Ronnie.
Yeah. So Ronnie also sneaks in, and he is photographing all the notes. He's taking a bunch of pictures, and then the trench-coated figure pops out and is like, all right, you're under arrest. So this is another inspector. Alan, like, he pushes a chair and it hits a bunch of switches on the wall and it causes like the lights to flicker and
and somehow that surprises the guy who has the gun trained on Ronnie/Alan. If this was a real cop, he would have shot Alan/Ronnie.
Yeah. So in the commotion, Ronnie ends up knocking the inspector out, and he drags him into the... Or
does he kill him? Because the guy's eyes are open.
Yeah, it could... that might make... So he ends up... Either way, he drags the body into the chamber, disintegrates him, and then we see upstairs... Philippe is like, why are the lights flickering in the house?
Yeah, Cecile starts screaming too, and they run out together.
So they come downstairs, or just Philippe's like, I'll take care of this. He goes downstairs, and he sees Alan, and he's like, what are you doing down here? We were done for the night. And Alan's like, oh, I couldn't sleep. I was just thinking about it. Does he tell him that he already reintegrated the guinea pig?
Well, no. What happens is he's talking about wanting to bring back the rabbit guinea pig. Then he's like, you know what? We'll wait till morning.
Right. Okay. So Philippe goes back upstairs, and then Alan still stays downstairs. Or no, he goes upstairs as well, and he looks out the window and
he goes through a back door. Because there's always a back door. He's like, oh, there's the cop's car. Awesome. Thumbs up.
Yeah, so he calls Max and he's like, I need you to meet me at this intersection on the interstate or whatever. Yeah. So he goes back down, he reintegrates, and in our Fly-like manner, we had the guinea pig and the inspector both disintegrated together. So when they come back, we have the inspector.
Oh, this is so good. Like, I want to put this in the video so you could see it. It's ridiculous. It is the inspector with guinea pig feet and paws, with the guinea pig with man hands.
Yeah, and the man hands are like too big, like they're very silly.
They're normal man sized, yes.
Yeah,
and the guinea pig hands are also they're above normal man size.
Yeah, they're just big fuzzy gloves, basically. But so the inspector body seems to be still dead or unconscious in some way, whereas the guinea pig is like alive, with its like weird guinea or human hands, and so of course Ronnie is like, oh, that's gross, and he like stomps it, kills it.
Yeah, once again, the worst. Please tell us who's worse, like the worst villain that we've dealt with so far, because I feel like Ronnie's up there. Maybe one of the versions of Peter Cushing as Victor Frankenstein. That's true.
There was some pretty rough ones there, but
it was the SA Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. He's the worst. You're right.
But it's right up there for sure. And so he ends up he drags the inspector's body and the little guinea pig body to the car. Drives away with it, and the housekeeper sees all this out the window, so she knows something fishy's going on. And so then Ronnie meets Max, and they roll the car off a cliff.
Well, they don't roll it. There's like a literal button that makes it go hyperspeed off the cliff. Was that a thing? Like, was there like a push button just drive?
Yeah, you see sometimes in movies they'll like put a brick on the gas pedal or something. But this is like he just does something with like a gear shift and it just goes. I don't know if this is... I don't think any old cars were like that. I think you had to use the gas pedal.
But did they not realize you just put a brick there? Or did the brick thing not work then? I feel like it would have worked then.
Yeah,
I don't know. What do I know?
But either way, they crash the car off a cliff, and then Ronnie gets in Max's car and he drives him close to the house, but not too close, so that they're not seen, and he walks the rest of the way.
And he's like, "Hey, Max, here's some of the film for like down payment. I'll bring you the rest of the stuff later."
Yeah, just this is enough that you can like get people interested. Find us the best deal, and then I'll get everything else.
Yep.
And so then when he goes back inside, this is when he runs into Philippe, and Philippe is like, all right, there's enough fishy stuff now going on. You got to tell me what's happening.
Madame Menard told me she saw you leave. And Ronald's like, oh, yeah, man, I just went outside to check. I saw there was a car, And he's like, no, 2 hours ago is when you left. And Alan's like, nah, bro, it was just a couple minutes ago. Hey, okay, Alan, fair. What about this weird stain? The stain on the floor that looks like a blood stain. What's about that? Oh, that's that guinea pig. I couldn't wait. I brought him back. He bit me. I stopped him because I'm a psychopath. Yeah. That's pretty cool, man. That's pretty cool. You got a lot of stories to cover everything up. You got a story for everything. That's really cool. What about these? And he holds up handcuffs. Uh-oh.
Yeah, and Ronnie's like, yeah, I'm sure I could come up with a story for the handcuffs, but instead, I'm just going to pull a gun on you.
Right. If you got a gun, you don't have to tell you. So yeah, we're on the same page now.
Yeah. So he's like, all right, you need to get in the chamber. And Philippe's like, it's too late. It's over, Ronnie. Like I called the cops. Way,
yeah.
And he takes the handcuffs and uses them like kind of like brass knuckles or like a hits Ronnie with the cuffs and knocks Ronnie down. Fight. Yep, we get a full on fist fight between the two of them. But Philippe, he's a soft scientist boy, and Ronnie is definitely a crook. So at the end of it, Ronnie does knock Philippe out and drags him into the chamber.
And because Ronnie is such a scumbag, he sees that fucking fly and he's like, I know what you're terrified of, buddy. Here we go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because at first I think he was just going to disintegrate him and that was going to be it. But he's like, no, I'm gonna just be awful because I can.
Right, I'm gonna fuck your shit up.
Yep. So he, catches the fly, throws it into the mix, and then disintegrates them both, and then starts like gathering up all kinds of the papers to steal. And then we see upstairs, Francois has just arrived, and we've got
Cecile's like the boys were fighting. I can hear them. Yeah.
And meanwhile, the housekeeper, she's rambling in French, and Francois is like, "Okay, I'll go find out. I'll take care of it." He runs downstairs and he sees Alan running out that back door, and he follows after him.
Alan finds his car and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm stealing this one, baby."
Mm-hmm. So he's getting ready to speed away, and Francois tries to stop him, but Alan again pulls the gun out, and Francois is like, where's Philippe? And he's like, he's busy. He's serving the cause of science.
Yeah.
And then he just fucking shoots Francois and speeds off, which was surprising. I did not see that coming.
Uh-oh, Francois is going to die in this one, maybe.
Yeah.
Rough.
So then we have just like a little later, and Cecile and the housekeeper are caring for Francois's wound, and they're like, we need to call a doctor. And he's like, no, I got to find out what's going on with Philippe. I got to get down to the lab. I have to help him. And we hear...
Chances are he disintegrated Philippe.
Mm-hmm, yeah. And then we hear police sirens sounding in the distance, and Francois is like, all right, I'm going downstairs. You keep them occupied as long as you can.
Right. Cecile, help me down the stairs, please.
Yeah. So he goes downstairs and starts looking at stuff, and, right when the cops get there, it does not last long. They're right away. They're like, no, we're not listening to you, lady. We're going down into the lab.
Right.
So they get down right as Francois flips the switch and reintegrates Philippe.
And the fly.
Yep, but it is, again, a fly monster, which is, the identical... well, actually...
No, it's quite different.
He's got the head and the hand, but he also has...
The head is massive.
Feet. Yeah.
That is a massive dome.
Yeah, it's huge. And he also has, at least one of his feet is a fly foot now, too.
Oh, no.
And, so, when Francois sees this, of course, he's losing a lot of blood, too. He faints. The fly monster pushes through the police and escapes out that back door. So we have, I think, 2 cops downstairs. So one chases after the fly monster. One tries to help Francois, and he's, calling on his walkie-talkie for backup.
Cecile's losing her mind.
Mm-hmm. And then while the cop that stayed in the lab is working on Philippe, he hears a familiar, tiny little voice saying, help me, help me.
Cecile, Francois.
Yeah. And he looks over and he sees it. He sees the fly, and rather than just being like, oh, it's a white-headed fly like they kept doing last time, he looks at it and
it's
sees...
the face of Philippe.
Yeah. And so he almost faints himself. Then he's like, "Oh my, what?" And then we just cut to like later, and now we're at the hospital, and everyone's waiting on Francois to get out of his procedure, and we've got the cops are all talking, and they're like, "We got to figure out what happened. Where is the other inspector? He was supposed to he was looking into this."
Yeah, Beecham.
Yeah. So then we also see that while all this is going on, that the fly monster got in the back of like a cargo truck or something, and so he has escaped far away. Like he's not just like running in the woods nearby like in the previous movie. He's gone.
Right.
The police are trying to get like as soon as Francois comes out, they want to talk to him, and he's like, "I'll only talk to Beecham."
Right. And the guy's like, "Well, I want to help you. I saw some wild stuff down there."
Yeah, and they're like, "Why Beecham?" And he's like, "He knows terrible secrets that you wouldn't believe. He's the only one." And the cop that was down in the lab with him is like, "Does this have to do with the fly?"
Yeah.
And Francois is like, "What do you know about the fly?" And he's like,
"I saw it."
"Yeah, I saw it, but I'll get Beecham." So he leaves.
Cut to Max at the mortuary.
Yeah, and he's like pacing around. He gets a phone call from Ronnie, and Ronnie's like, "I've got everything. I'm all ready." And,
right, he's like, "I fucked shit up, but let's go. We gotta go."
Yeah, Max is like, "I'm seeing stuff in the newspaper. You really made a mess of things." And he's like, "It doesn't matter. As soon as we get the money, we'll part ways. If I've got heat on me, it has nothing to do with you."
They'll be looking for me, not you.
Yeah. Back at the hospital, Beecham does come to visit Francois, and there's so many different cops in this. I thought that Beecham was the cop that got disintegrated,
right?
But Beecham was the cop that we saw at the beginning, who was not. So Beecham knew the fly story, but the cop chasing Ronnie/Alan was different.
Totally
he
different
was on,
guy.
Yeah, he was on his own case. So Beecham does show up, and he's Francois fills him in on everything, and Beecham's like, "All right, I'm on it. I know what happened last time. We're not going to let this fall apart again.
Yeah, we're going to fix this before it becomes an issue."
Yeah.
Cut to Max smoking his cigar. Then he hears slurping noises.
Mm-hmm. And he's like walking around like a little nervous. He knows there's some heat on this whole Ronnie deal. Eventually, he like pulls back a curtain, I think, and the fly monster is just right there, and it attacks and kills him like right away.
We get like a little freeze frame on his face, a la Texas Chainsaw Massacre there for a second.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
So then we see like later, Francois has been sent home, but he's still in bad shape. He's not just like in a wheelchair. He's like on the hospital gurney, still being like rolled into the house. And Beecham also arrives, and he's like, "I'm going to go downstairs. I'm going to look for the fly." And sure enough, he finds the little fly.
Well, he finds a fly first, and then he just smacks the shit out of it with a book. And I'm like, that's a little reckless, man. maybe hold off until you got the fly you need. But once again, like you were about to say, he does hear the "Philippe, Cecile, help me."
Mm-hmm. Yep. So he manages to catch this one. He traps it in a jar, and he runs up to Francois, and he's like, "Do you know what the lifespan of a fly is?"
Right. How long do we got, bud?
And Francois was like, "Well, they could be, a month or two, but like we don't know how old that fly was to start with, so we have no idea how much time we've got."
Yeah, he could have a couple hours, couple days, couple weeks. Who knows?
Mm-hmm. So we still need to find the other half of this situation.
And I love Vincent Price / Francois, because immediately after he's like, "Yeah, you gotta save him." What if he comes back as a I'm sorry, the way he says it so wild. A creature with a murderous brain of a fly. Dude, flies just want to eat crap. Literal crap. That's all they want. They don't kill nobody. What?
Yeah. Now this one having like a different foot and stuff, like what, because in the last movie, Andre had his brain, at least to start with, and it started to sort of like decay over time or whatever. But we don't know what this fly is like, so yeah. So instead, Beecham's like, we're gonna keep on it. Like the police are out looking for him. I'm gonna go out and look for him.
If it was a horsefly, I would understand. That's more of a hey, it wants to like bite you and suck your blood. Mm-hmm. This is just a common black fly. That's all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So he's like, yeah, the rest of the guys are out looking. I'm going to stay here and keep you all safe in case the fly monster does show back up. I'm going to protect the family here.
Yeah. Cut to Ronnie.
Ronnie ends up, he goes to the mortuary and, of course, finds Max dead and then is pretty much immediately also attacked by the fly. And it again, seems like he has killed him right away.
You mean the Fly-lipe? No, I'm sorry. Forgive me. Yeah. But this time, Ronnie does manage to fire his gun. He doesn't hit the fly, but he makes some noise. Right. By the way, the fly kills him and then stuffs him in a coffin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So of course the gunshot, the cops are on the lookout, so they rush in, and the fly manages to get away unseen, but we do see the cops searching, and mostly dead Ronnie pops up out of the coffin for a good jump scare, surprises the cop, but then he still just collapses dead. So then we have a little later, Beecham comes back to tell Francois that Max and Ronnie are both dead. So
their necks were crushed.
Yeah. So he's like, but it's okay. I've got things under control here at the house. And then we cut to immediately him falling asleep in the middle of the night. And the fly sneaks into the house.
Into Cecile's room.
Yep. So of course we got to have a monster menacing an innocent young girl. So he gets really close to the bed. She wakes up and screams, which wakes the inspector up. And he runs in, and suddenly the fly monster is just very chill.
Yeah,
he seemed very murderous all this time.
Well, the inspector is marching. Beecham's marching him around hey, a confused uncle, right? He's like, come here, Uncle Fly. Let's go downstairs to the transferal chamber. I'll get you fixed up, buddy.
Yep, and he just leads him it's no problem at all. And they, Cecile goes to get Francois, while Beecham puts the big fly and the little fly into the chamber, and Francois gets downstairs. He runs the machine, and it seems to work. When they reintegrate, we have Philippe. He looks okay for the most part. He looks exhausted, but he looks fully human.
Right.
And
whatever happened to that fly? Where's that thing at?
Yeah, so the lad, Francois is kind of looking around. He's still dealing with his wound as well, but he looks relieved that everything's over. And then he hears buzzing, and he looks over and sees the fly on the wall, and it also looks fully to be a fly. So
abrupt ending.
Yep, abrupt ending. Hopefully all the inside parts carried over, and we don't still have a murderous fly brain inside of Philippe's head, but that's how.
Or the dude's not just spitting out fly seed. If you get what I mean.
Yeah. So we had a big the end, and that's it. So that's it for now, because I also have no idea what happens in the next one. Curse of the Fly.
Yep. Well, we already spoiled it. That's what we're doing next time. Is Curse of the Fly.
Yeah. So that's not a cheerful, upbeat title. So I'm guessing more bad stuff is going to happen. I don't know if this continues with our same cast or if we end up further in the future and different people.
Right.
But
so here's my prediction, and I don't know. I honestly do not know. I have a feeling that Philippe and Cecile will have a kid, and that kid may have fly-like qualities.
Yeah, that would be good, because like I said at the beginning, it seemed like it was going to be tricky to explain why we would have the same thing happen again, but having a bad guy intentionally do it made it make sense. But we can't just have the same thing happen a third time. This fool me 3 times, shame on me on that. So there's got to be something different, and that's actually a really good prediction. I like that it's
we'll see.
There's. So we'll find out what the fly's curse is next week, and I don't know. I think that's pretty much all I've got. This one, it's pretty straightforward. There's not this is more of a the last one was a science run amok kind of story, but this is really just sort of like a gangster story with sci-fi stuff in the background.
Well, this is like the first corporate espionage, really.
Yeah, it really is. And I think that works for this. Like, if you were trying to tell the exact same story over and over, it's not going to work. But this feels like, a lot of times...
Tell that to Friday the 13th, bro.
Yeah.
It can, sure, but yeah, there are minor changes that need to be made, for sure.
Yeah, but I like this idea of it being like sort of a genre swap. Like, I think some of the best like movie franchises, that's how they pull it off, is, I think of like The Dark Tower, which is not a movie franchise, but like those books are so good because it's like the first one's a Western, the next one is like this is basically outright horror, and then we have like a sci-fi one, and then then we have like a fantasy, like and that keeps the characters are the same, but
is it Wolves of Kala basically an anime where Roland gets a buster gun effectively?
Yeah, it's like Seven Samurai, but with like Harry Potter stuff and Doctor Doom masks, and I think there are lightsabers in it. It's crazy.
Well, like you said, just switching the genres and all up.
Yeah, so I hope they continue that with the third one. I think I like your idea, which could be sort of our most Frankenstein-y of this. If it's like a child born monstrous and finding out how the parents respond to that and everything.
Right.
So I'm definitely interested to see, where this, how this original series wraps up.
Yep, definitely exciting. All right, Anthony. Well, we've gone through everything. This has been short, easy, and breezy. Where can they find us, man?
So you can find us on all the socials at The Frankencast. You can email us at thefrankencast@gmail.com. We're also over on YouTube. And of course, you can always find us at patreon.com/thefrankencast, where we're always doing different stuff over there. We're a little bit more outside the box. And, we'd love to, I think the past couple of weeks here on the main feed, you've seen a little bit more of what our Patreon situation is like. So if you've enjoyed that kind of weirdness we've been up to over here, you might have fun over on the Patreon.
You might. Who knows? No, definitely you will. But all right. Well, anything else we got to talk about?
I think that's it.
Yeah, well, otherwise, ladies, gentlemen, and everything in between, obviously interact with us any way you can on those platforms. Give us that sweet interaction, please.
The algorithm loves it.
It demands it. It demands to be fed. Feed the algorithm. But other than that, thank you, and to be continued.
Looks like you survived another episode. The Frankencast is a production of FCR Media. It's hosted by Anthony Bowman and Eric Velasquez. Follow us on Twitter at The Frankencast, or send us a letter at thefrankencast@gmail.com. Our cover art is by Amanda Keller. You can find her at Keller Illustrations on Instagram. Our theme music is by Vivek Abhishek. Thanks for listening.